Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, this isn't how it's supposed to go? You had a plan. You had a vision. You were doing the right things, showing up, working hard, staying consistent, praying, believing, and yet somehow it feels like life is spiraling in the opposite direction. You lost your job, the relationship ended, the opportunity fell through, or maybe worse, everything around you looks fine, but deep inside, you feel lost, stuck, and uncertain about your purpose. And in those quiet moments, when nobody's watching, when the lights are off and your mind won't stop racing, you ask the question we've all asked at some point. God, what are you doing? Why is this happening? Let me tell you something that might shake you a little, but it just might save you too. Your confusion does not mean God is absent. Your storm does not mean he's silent. Your delay does not mean he's denied you. It might just mean that the blueprint for your life is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, even if you can't see the big picture yet. You see, we live in a country that celebrates hustle. The American dream tells us that if you work hard, you'll get ahead. If you plan well, things will go your way. And if something doesn't work, it must be your fault. We've built a culture that thrives on control, on timelines, on 5-year plans. And while discipline and drive are beautiful, they can sometimes blind us to a deeper truth, that some things in life aren't meant to be controlled but trusted. Imagine this. You're watching a construction site. You see bulldozers digging deep holes, workers laying concrete, dust flying, and nothing that looks remotely like a home. It's messy, it's chaotic, and from the outside, it looks like nothing good is happening. But you know better, right? Because you've seen the blueprint. You trust that before a house rises, a strong foundation must be poured. That's exactly what God is doing in your life right now. You might not see the final picture. You might not understand why he's taking you through the season of breaking, waiting, or rebuilding. But he is working behind the scenes with precision, with intention, with divine purpose. You are not abandoned. You are under construction. And what he's building is far more beautiful than anything you could have planned on your own. Let me go even deeper. What if the doors that closed weren't meant to break you, but to bless you? What if the person who walked away had to leave so you could discover your identity without needing their validation? What if the opportunities you lost were only stepping stones to something that aligns far more with your calling than your comfort? I get it. It's hard to trust in what you can't see. It's hard to believe in what you don't understand. But that's exactly what faith is. That's exactly what growth looks like. Faith isn't believing when everything is going right. Faith is standing in the middle of the storm, with tears in your eyes and confusion in your heart, and still saying, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I choose to trust you anyway. Because here's the truth no one talks about enough. Pain often precedes purpose. The most powerful stories are birthed in the darkest valleys. And the people who make the biggest impact are often the ones who walk through the deepest struggles, but refuse to give up because they trusted there was meaning in the madness. So let me ask you this. Can you trust the process when it doesn't look like progress? Can you still move forward when you don't see the full map? Can you believe that maybe, just maybe, God's plan is not only better than yours, but is protecting you, positioning you, and preparing you for something you're not even ready for yet? This is just the beginning, my friend. In part 2, we'll dive deeper into nature's surrender and why sometimes the greatest strength isn't found in fighting harder, but in letting go and saying, God, you lead, I'll follow. The power of letting go. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. There's a moment in everyone's journey when life brings you to your knees. Not metaphorically, literally. You're done. You've tried everything. You've chased every lead, knocked on every door, spoken every prayer, read every quote, kept yourself busy, tried to stay positive, and yet nothing seems to move. You're stuck in a silent chapter. No answers, no clarity, just you, your thoughts, and the crushing weight of uncertainty. And it's in that moment, when your strength runs out, that God whispers something radical. Let go. Let go? Let go of what? Your plans? Your expectations? Your timeline? Your pride? Yes, all of it. But here's the truth. Most people hear that and think, letting go means giving up, especially in American culture, where we're taught to hustle harder, grind longer, and never stop fighting. We glorify the self-made mentality. We idolize control. We celebrate people who push through no matter what. And while there's power and persistence, there's a different kind of strength, a deeper kind of strength, that comes from surrendering what you can't control to the one who can. Surrender is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's not quitting. It's realigning. It's not failure, it's faith in action. Let me paint this picture for you. Imagine you're holding a rope. You've been pulling it for hours, days, months, trying to drag your vision into reality. The rope represents your need to control every outcome. But the more you pull, the more it burns. Your hands are blistered. Your muscles ache. But you're terrified to let go because deep down, you believe if you stop pulling, everything will fall apart. But what if holding on is the very thing stopping the blessing from flowing in? So many of us are walking around exhausted, burned out, bitter. Not because God isn't moving, but because we're still trying to write the script our way. We're holding on to broken plans, expired seasons, toxic people, or identities that no longer serve us, just because we're afraid of what might happen if we let go. But listen closely. Sometimes God won't move until you do. Not move in effort, but move in surrender. He's not waiting for you to try harder. He's waiting for you to trust deeper. Think about the story of Abraham. God told him to leave everything familiar, his home, his comfort, his entire sense of security, and walk to a land that hadn't even been revealed yet. Imagine that level of surrender. No GPS, no plan, no guarantee. Just go. And Abraham did it. That's faith. That's radical trust. That's the kind of obedience that unlocks supernatural blessings. And here's where it gets real. Some of us are missing the move of God in our lives because we're still clinging to control. We're praying for miracles, but refusing to release. We're asking God to open doors, but refusing to drop the baggage we're carrying. Let me challenge you today with a bold truth. You don't have to understand the plan to trust the planner. You don't need all the answers to take the next step. You don't need a guarantee of success to walk in obedience. What you need is surrender. Real surrender. Not the kind that says, God, I trust you, but let me still hold on to this one part. No, the kind that says, God, even if it doesn't go how I imagined, even if it takes longer, even if I lose something or someone along the way, I still choose you. I still trust you. Because what if that thing you're holding on to is the very thing God is trying to remove, not to hurt you, but to heal you? What if the closed door is his protection? What if the rejection was his redirection? What if the delay is divine? There's a quote I love. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not climbing the mountain, but kneeling beside it and saying, God, if this is where you want me, I'll stay. That's powerful. That's what trust looks like. That's what builds an unshakable mindset. So if you're tired of carrying the weight of your world on your shoulders, if you're tired of the mental exhaustion, the overthinking, the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable, then maybe it's time. Time to lift your hands, unclench your fists, and say the words that unlock peace. God, I give it all to you, my timing, my dreams, my pain, my future. Take it. I trust you. And when you do, that's when the shift begins. That's when doors open you never saw coming. That's when healing starts. That's when you no longer walk in fear, but in freedom. Stay with me, because in part 3, we're going to explore why the waiting season isn't wasted and how trusting God's timing can actually become your greatest weapon in the battles ahead. The waiting room, when God's timing feels too late. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just lingers. It's quiet, but it's heavy. It's the ache of waiting. Waiting for the breakthrough. Waiting for the healing. Waiting for the yes. Waiting for the season to change. And the hardest part? Watching the world move on while you feel stuck in place. Everyone around you seems to be advancing, getting married, getting promoted, buying homes, launching businesses, living the dream, and you're still praying for a door to open, still holding on to a promise that hasn't shown up yet, still wondering if God forgot your name. But let me tell you something that very few people will say out loud. Waiting is one of the holiest, most powerful seasons of your life. If you allow it to be, because while the world measures progress by movement, God measures it by maturity. While the culture says faster is better, God says deeper is stronger. You see, the waiting room is not punishment, it's preparation. It's where God develops the strength you'll need to carry the blessing you've been praying for. Because a door opened too early can crush you if your character hasn't caught up. A dream released too soon can become a burden instead of a blessing. Think about this. When you plant a seed, it disappears into the soil. For weeks, sometimes months, you see nothing. But underneath the surface, something sacred is happening. Roots are growing. The seed is transforming. The foundation is being established. And then one day, without warning, A sprout breaks through the soil. But that growth didn't start the day you saw it. It started in the dark, in the silent, in the unseen. That's exactly what God is doing with you. You might feel like nothing is changing, like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, like your efforts are going unnoticed. But I promise you this, God is never inactive in your waiting. He's working on the pieces you can't see, shifting hearts, aligning timing, preparing opportunities, maturing your mindset, building your faith, sculpting your soul. And maybe, just maybe, the reason for the delay isn't because the blessing isn't ready, but because you're not ready to receive it yet. That's not an insult. That's love. That's grace. That's a God who doesn't want to give you something that will destroy you. He wants to give you something that will elevate you. Let's get real for a second. Waiting hurts. It messes with your mind. It tempts you to settle. It whispers lies like, maybe you're not good enough, or maybe God changed his mind. But listen to me. God does not tease. He does not ghost. He does not abandon what he has chosen. If he promised it, he will fulfill it. But it will be on his timing, not yours. And that's where trust becomes everything. Not blind trust, not shallow trust, but the kind of trust that says, God, even if it takes longer than I thought, even if I don't understand the reasons, even if it's uncomfortable, I will wait on you. Because what you have for me is worth it. You know what's crazy? Some of the strongest people in history, both in faith and real life, had to wait. Joseph waited in a prison cell for years before stepping into his destiny. David was anointed as king but waited in caves, hunted and hiding before he ever wore a crown. Even Jesus waited 30 years before starting his public ministry. Why? Because purpose takes time. Because greatness requires refinement. Because God is not in a rush. He's in the business of creating something eternal. And when God is in it, the wait is never wasted. So while you're in this season, stop seeing the wait as a wall. Start seeing it as a classroom. This is where God teaches you who you are. This is where he deepens your roots so that when the winds come, and they will come, you won't be shaken. This is where you build the discipline, the resilience, the patience, and the gratitude that will protect you when the blessing arrives. Because here's the truth. When the promise finally comes, you won't just be thankful for what God gave you. You'll be thankful for how he grew you. You'll look back and realize the wait didn't break you. It built you. It taught you to walk by faith, not by sight. It taught you that your identity doesn't come from outcomes, but from the one who never changes. So don't despise this season. Don't rush out of the waiting room. Sit with it. Learn from it. Trust the timing. Even when it feels like God is late, because he never is. And when you're ready, join me for part 4, where we'll talk about why pain and detours are not signs of abandonment, but evidence of divine redirection. Divine detours, when pain becomes your pathway. Life doesn't always go in a straight line. In fact, more often than not, it takes unexpected turns, painful pauses, and confusing detours. One moment, you're full of hope, ready to chase your dream, and the next, you're hit with something you never saw coming. A diagnosis, a betrayal, a layoff, a loss, so deep it knocks the air out of your lungs. And suddenly, the path you were so sure about disappears beneath your feet. In that moment, it's easy to feel like you've been abandoned, forgotten, overlooked. It's easy to believe the lie that pain means God is absent, that if things were really part of his plan, they wouldn't hurt this much. But here's the truth most people don't realize until they look back. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come not in spite of pain, but because of it. Pain is a strange teacher. It shows up uninvited, disrupts everything, and forces us to face the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. It tears down illusions. It breaks our pride. It humbles us, strips us, tests us, and yet, if we let it, pain can also build us, anchor us, and lead us to the exact place we were always meant to be. Because what we call a detour, God often calls direction. Let's be real. Detours feel unfair. They delay us. They frustrate us. They take us away from what we thought was the fastest route to success or peace or healing. But have you ever stopped to consider that maybe the reason God allowed the detour is because what was waiting on the straight path would have destroyed you? Maybe the business you lost would have taken your soul with it. Maybe the person who left was never meant to go with you into your destiny. Maybe the opportunity that slipped away would have distracted you from the real calling on your life. God sees what you can't. He knows what lies ahead. He sees the trap you don't see. He hears the conversations you're not in. He knows the motives behind the people you trust. So when he reroutes you, even through pain, it's not punishment. It's protection. It's not rejection. It's redirection. And here's the most powerful part. What the enemy meant to destroy you, God will use to develop you. Every scar you carry, every tear you cried, every night you sat in silence, wondering if God was even listening, none of it is wasted. He collects every tear. He redeems every wound. He repurposes every failure. You're not just going through pain, you're growing through it. Look at the story of Joseph, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold as a slave, falsely accused, thrown into prison and forgotten, detour after detour. And yet, every setback was a setup. Every betrayal moved him closer to the palace. Every moment of pain positioned him for power. And in the end, Joseph looked his brothers in the eye and said, "You meant this for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what divine detours do. They turn your wounds into weapons. They turn your scars into stories. They turn your delays into destiny. But here's the catch. You won't always understand it in the moment. You won't always see the hand of God when you're sitting in the middle of your heartbreak. That's where faith comes in. Not the easy kind. The deep, gritty, soul-level kind. The kind of faith that says, God, even in this, especially in this, I still trust you. Because when you begin to trust that every detour has divine purpose, you stop panicking when life doesn't go according to plan. You stop comparing your path to someone else's highlight reel. You stop resenting the pain and start asking, what are you teaching me through this? You begin to understand that maybe you didn't miss out. Maybe God pulled you out. Maybe he delayed it because you were about to settle for less. Maybe he broke your heart to build your identity. Maybe he allowed the storm so you'd learn to stand on his promises instead of your own plans. And when that shift happens in your spirit, when you stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, you become unshakable. Because now, even when life throws you curveballs, you walk with quiet confidence that says, this hurts, but I know it's not the end of the story. So I challenge you today. Look back at your life. Look at the moments that devastated you, the ones that felt like they broke you, and ask yourself, didn't God bring you through? Didn't he still provide? Didn't you learn something? Didn't you grow? And if he did it before, he will do it again. So don't fear the detour. Don't curse the pain. Don't lose hope in the valley. Because God does some of his greatest work in the places we never planned to be. It's bigger than you. Your story is someone else's survival guide. There comes a point in your journey when you realize this isn't just about you. The pain you endured, the battles you fought in silence, the tears you wiped away behind closed doors, the nights you laid awake wondering why. They weren't random. They weren't meaningless. They were setting the stage for something greater than your personal breakthrough. Because while you were praying for relief, God was preparing you for purpose. Let that sink in. What if the very thing you begged God to take away is the thing he's going to use to heal someone else? You see, we live in a culture that teaches us to chase comfort, convenience, and personal success. We're taught to build platforms, not testimonies. To seek followers, not transformation. But God's way is different. He doesn't just elevate people for their own sake. He raises people to reach people. Every scar, every setback, every season of waiting, every closed door, it all becomes part of a story that someone else needs to hear. Because while you were struggling in private, God was shaping a message in you that will speak life into someone else's darkness. Think about it. That divorce you thought would destroy you, one day, it'll help someone else feel seen in their own brokenness. That season of depression you thought would never end, one day, your survival will be someone else's reason to keep breathing. That job loss, that addiction, that betrayal, that diagnosis, none of it is wasted. What broke you becomes what builds others. We're not here to live isolated lives of quiet survival. We're here to be bridges, to turn our stories into strength for the people coming up behind us. And sometimes God allows us to go through things not because we deserve it, but because he trusts us to carry it. He knows that when we come out on the other side, we won't just walk away. We'll reach back. We'll grab someone else's hand and say, hey, I've been there, and you're going to make it too. Let's be honest. We all want to be used by God, but we don't always like how he chooses to prepare us. We love the idea of purpose, but not the pain that often comes with it. We want the stage, not the wilderness. But hear me clearly. The wilderness is what gives your words weight. It's what gives your voice authority. It's what makes your testimony real. People don't need perfect heroes. They need honest voices. They need to know they're not alone. They need to see someone who's been through hell and still came out with hope. And maybe, just maybe, that person is you. So if you've been wondering why your journey has been so hard, why the wait has been so long, why the pain has been so deep, could it be because your life is meant to be a lighthouse for someone else's storm? God doesn't just write stories for entertainment. He writes them for impact, for legacy, for connection. You were never meant to keep your story to yourself. You were meant to live it, heal from it, and then share it. Boldly, bravely, because someone out there is walking through what you've already survived, and they need proof that victory is possible. And here's the twist. When you stop obsessing over the why me and start embracing the what now, you step into a power bigger than yourself. You become a living testimony. You shift from survival mode to legacy mode. You stop just looking for answers, and you become an answer. That's the real beauty of trusting God's plan. It's not just that He's working things out for your good. It's that He's using your journey for the good of many. So don't hide your scars. Don't silence your story. Don't let shame rob you of your voice. Because there's someone out there right now, praying for a sign, begging for hope, drowning in despair, and your story might be the rope that pulls them out. This is bigger than you. And when you begin to live with that perspective, life stops feeling random. Your past starts to make sense. Your pain starts to feel purposeful. And your heart begins to burn not just for success, but for significance. Now get ready, because in part 6, we'll bring everything home. We'll talk about how trusting God's plan isn't a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle that unlocks peace, power, and unstoppable momentum. Living the trust, a daily surrender to divine strategy. There comes a point in your journey where trusting God is no longer just a message you hear on Sundays or a phrase you toss around when things are good. It becomes your lifestyle. It becomes your anchor when life turns upside down. It becomes your compass when the road ahead disappears into uncertainty. And it becomes your strength when all you have left is faith. Because here's the truth. Trusting God's plan is not a one-time choice. It's a daily surrender. Every single morning, you have to wake up and decide, God, I don't know what today holds, but I trust that you hold it. That's not weakness. That's power. That's spiritual maturity. That's the mindset of someone who's been through storms, walked through fire, stumbled in the dark, and still believes. You see, trust doesn't mean you'll never question. It doesn't mean you'll never feel anxious or frustrated or confused. What it means is this: you choose to trust anyway, even when the outcome is unclear, even when your plans fall apart, even when the people you counted on walk away, even when the door closes, even when heaven seems silent. Because by now, you've seen what happens when you put your trust in your own strength. You've seen how fragile your plans can be, how quickly the rug can be pulled out from under you. So you've learned that there's a deeper kind of peace, a peace that comes not from control, but from release. Real trust says, God, I may not understand this season, but I know you are still sovereign in it. Real trust says, even if it hurts, I believe you'll redeem it. Real trust doesn't need all the answers. It just needs to know the author of the story is still writing. And once you start living like that, something changes in you. You stop panicking every time life shifts. You stop getting stuck in discipline. You're not chasing approval. You're walking in purpose. You're not defined by the opinions of others. You're grounded in the truth that you are called, chosen, and covered by grace. And listen closely. When you live in that kind of trust, people notice. They see your peace in the storm and wonder how you have it. They see your joy in uncertainty and ask where it comes from. They watch you go through trials without losing your light, and they're drawn to something they can't explain. That's what trusting God does. It makes your life a living testimony. And if you've been through pain, if you face loss, if you've been waiting, struggling, doubting, let me say this loud and clear. You didn't come this far to survive. You came this far to shine, to inspire, to lead, to show the world what it looks like to trust even when it's tough. So today, I challenge you. Don't just trust God when things are easy. Trust Him when it's messy. Trust Him when you're still waiting. Trust Him when you don't feel Him. Because that's where real growth happens. That's where faith becomes fire. And remember, every delay has purpose. Every detour has direction. Every pain has redemption. Every no is protecting a better yes. And every step, whether forward, backward, or still, is still leading you toward a life far greater than you could have planned on your own. So live with bold trust, daily, fiercely, humbly. Live like someone who knows that the God who brought you this far isn't done with you yet. Live like someone who understands that trusting God's plan is the most powerful decision you can make. Not just once, but again and again and again. Because in the end, it won't be your resume, your bank account, your followers, or your achievements that define your legacy. It will be your faith. And if you trust Him fully, if you surrender completely, if you keep walking, even when the path disappears, you will look back one day and realize the plan was perfect all along.